Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into the Sports Source. We appreciate you being here with us in the Junk Beyond studio for today's edition. We've got 90 minutes to cover, and we've got 9 people's opinions to give you, and we're going to cover about 15 to 20 different topics. So it's going to be a packed show. Tennessee beats Austin Peay 30-13. We can explain what. I can explain it to you right now. 1, you didn't run through the tee. 2, you didn't wear your traditional uniforms. 3, you didn't take the opponent seriously. Obviously, you angered the football gods. That's what happened. That's why it was so ugly. We'll break it all down for you, and more importantly, kind of push it forward into the Florida game next week. What can we take from yesterday, and what does it tell us about the game that's coming up? Let me go ahead and show you what's coming up on today's show, by the way, what's on the docket. First of all, we got the top takeaways from the game. We're going to talk about the best player and the worst move yesterday. Was UT believing the hype? Were they looking ahead? What's the bigger worry going forward, quarterback or receivers? SEC's not looking good. We got a history lesson and a look back at Tennessee's last win at the Swamp. This says 3 reasons UT will beat UT. Now, that would have worked in previous years. That's simply a typo at 2 a.m. for me. It should be 3 reasons UT will beat UF. So we'll talk about that. And we got the Cavaliers line coming up. But this first segment of our program is brought to you by our friends at the Garza Law Firm. When you're in need of an attorney, choose a local one. Choose a local one with a proven track record. A local one with a proven track record who takes pride in giving back to the East Tennessee community. Well, that's simple. That's Marcos Garza and the Garza Law Firm. Wherever you are in East Tennessee, if you're watching this show, the Garza Law Firm can represent you, can help you, can take care of you if you're needing an attorney. Get in touch with the Garza Law Firm. Look them up, garzalaw.com. All right, let's welcome in the first wave of panelists. Right down here, Jimmy Himes is with us. Jimmy, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will Overstreet, for being here. Will, VFL, thank you.
Glad to be here.
Josh Ward right here, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Bob Hodge right there, thank you as well.
You're welcome.
Okay, as I mentioned, 30-13, it was not what anyone expected. It was such a bad performance that you had people wondering, okay, once Nico gets in and gets out of there, who's the next guy that's going to be in? Who's going to be the 3? We're going to get to 4 quarterbacks this week or 5? You didn't even get the backups in there. I mean, it was you had to play starters pretty deep into that game. I thought it was interesting. Mike Strange, our old friend on this show, had a tweet yesterday. He said, I think Austin Peay did more to prep Tennessee with that performance than they would have if they just shown up and rolled over 55-0, which is an interesting Mike Strange perspective on it. I'll just get your guys' takeaways, top takeaways. Jimmy, I'll start with you, and everybody just jump in here. Oh, I forgot. Let's go ahead and put the poll up. I'm sorry. Look here. You can get involved. How have the first 2 games impacted your confidence in Tennessee? More confident? That'd be interesting. Those are the true Vol fans. No change. You're not worried about this. Or less confident. Click the QR code or go to sportsource.tv/picks. Actually, it's polls. That's polls. And tell us there. All right, Jimmy, what's your big takeaway from the game?
The Tennessee couldn't complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage, hardly. How many did they complete downfield? 3 or 4?
I've got a chart. I've got a chart later that shows their passing
Just
chart.
One
pass beyond 10 yards.
Oh, well, I'm talking line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm counting 3 yards.
Yeah.
So just the fact that they couldn't throw the ball downfield and complete anything. And then Heupel gave up on it and said he just started throwing a bunch of screens out there, throw it right, throw it left, whatever. And that was about all they could go to. And that really alarmed me that against Austin Peay, you couldn't throw the ball intermediate or deep. They didn't really try many real deep throws, but they couldn't complete hardly a 10 or 15-yard pass. That really stood out to me.
Yeah, and then for me, one of the things I wanted to see in this game was how were the wide receivers going to show up and improve from the Virginia game, which I didn't think they had a great game there, and they took more steps backwards. So I got less confident in what you have at wide receiver and their ability to really be a weapon for you. Right now, I would say they're the weakest point, maybe except for the kicking game, on this team just by how they've shown up and performed. right now your better weapon to get in the passing game is to use your running backs. And I just don't see it right now from this wide receiving core. You've really taken a step back, obviously, from last year.
Yeah.
But I also don't see how these guys are going to match up well in the SEC at this point.
Gentlemen?
I'm going to go with my biggest takeaway from the game is love the kid. Joe Milton just doesn't seem to be getting better. He seems that some of the problems he had, now he didn't overthrow people, unless you're talking about just throwing it too high to his receivers who he had open, who if he hits them in stride, like Hendon Hooker would have done, a lot of yards after the catch were given up because, you know, his receivers didn't make plays for him, as you and I talked about.
Yeah.
But he was off. He was off on probably, I'm going to say, 50% of the incompletions.
A lot of them were behind. It was behind the receivers.
Were just bad throws, some of which could have been caught, but some of it would have been a good catch. And so now you're this far into his career, and you're still not seeing that big step up. Last week against Virginia, played okay, but he still had led 4 series where you did nothing against a very, very, very mediocre team. So my big takeaway is I'm a little bit worried about what's coming at that position.
And Bob, I think when he's a little bit off target, it's harder to catch his pass because he throws it so hard.
Yes, agreed.
Josh, what's your takeaway?
So, somewhat connected to your poll question today for the show, during the offseason, I was confident we needed to spend more time talking about the running game. It would come up, but naturally we talked about Joe and the passing attack and having to replace Jalen Hyatt and Hendon Hooker. But I thought, okay, the running game is going to be central to what this offense can do. And I think that's shown up even more. It's going to be more about what Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. We didn't see as much Dylan Sampson in game 2 after he scored 4 touchdowns.
He got 4 touches yesterday.
4 touches compared to 4 touchdowns the
sense
previous
to me.
week. But if they don't have the running game, then I'm going to worry where this
Well, I
offense
thought
goes
Tennessee-
because Joe Milton is going to have a more difficult time picking them up.
And I thought they kept throwing yesterday in the second half more to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
John, you made the comment to me when we said it. Okay, if you've gone this far into his
Since his
career
5th year.
and you're still working on him
Yeah.
in the second half of Austin Peay, okay, does that mean you've just got a problem?
Yeah, I just think he's not going to be a very accurate quarterback. He's not scattershot. He's not
No,
below 50%. He's not turning the ball over, although, again, we mentioned this last week, that offense doesn't have a lot of turnovers. So there is something to be said for that offense is extremely simple. People don't like hearing that. Simple doesn't mean bad. So if it works and it's simple, that's what you want. So that's not an insult, but it is a simple offense. You protect the ball. He's just not an incredibly accurate guy like a Hendon Hooker was. Ball placement. A little behind. Now, you'd like to think if this receiving core is wide receiver you and all the hype we've gotten, they'd make a play for the guy occasionally. I mean, if it's here and it hits you in the hands, you got to help your quarterback at some point.
Dante Thornton was hyped up from inside the building at UT during the summer. And 2 games in, but he's had his issues as well.
And you had so many, straight up drops yesterday too. Now, I've heard this one kicked around. Well, they didn't look good because Tennessee was keeping it vanilla. They didn't want to show Florida anything. Florida knows that wasn't vanilla yesterday.
No.
But I'll ask you this. How much of it was just entered? And now we've got a take with Mike Stoll later, so I don't want to get into where they're looking ahead. I don't want to get into or they're reading their own hype. But you didn't run through the tee. You had the weather delay. It's your home opener. You've been gearing up. They've got the countdown clocks over there, and now they had to reset it for 30 minutes. You don't go through the tee, which is that's an immediate pump you up moment when you go out there. Yeah. How much of that was just flat? We're just flat from the start. It wasn't like you started the game and had to go in for a weather delay. You delayed the whole thing. So to begin with, you played. Was the running through the tee any part of their flatness?
Well, I think it's a routine. Like a lot of guys, like you have a certain time when you're doing certain things to get ready for a game. And you do that a lot of times specifically for an Austin Peay type game, which is I need to be professional about this. I need to do these things and act like this is a Florida game. So, yeah, I think it can throw you off. My problem is it lasted the entire game. Yeah. So, where I would have believed that a lot more is, first quarter into the second quarter, it's not clicking it, but all of a sudden you turn it on and lights go. That didn't happen.
I thought that fumble punt would be the point. When Austin Peay turned it over close, I thought, okay, now you're about to get blown out of the stadium all the way back to Clarksville.
And that settled for a field goal.
Yeah, 3 and out at the
So if
13-yard
anything,
line.
it helped pump up Austin Peay a little bit.
I thought the same thing as Will. Jimmy asked me at halftime, okay, how many points will Tennessee score in the second half? And I thought, okay, first half, they messed around. They're just going to pour it on. I told him 35 points. They scored 30 for the game.
Yeah.
So, everybody expected to see Nico get extended period of time because the offense was going to pour it on, and it didn't happen because they couldn't.
They also had 3 possessions in the positive end of the field that they took over and couldn't score a touchdown on them.
I've thought that offense would idiot-proof you, upset-proof you against Georgia States of the world. Well, this was a rung below Georgia State, and you won, but be glad you were playing Austin Peay last night. If you'd played anybody else, if you'd played Appalachian State, who took North Carolina to overtime, that would have been a very serious game.
Yes.
Kudos, by the way. We got to keep the poll question up there. Last week we had some people, and I laughed at it. Our poll last week wound up with more people saying they were unhappy with the offense than were happy with it. Well, you were right. Like, boy, that's a tough audience. You were right. Kudos to you. Congratulations. And I will point out, too, for those who haven't seen it, Virginia lost yesterday to James Madison, who's been an FBS team for, I think, 2 years now. So not a great start right there. Let's take a look at the game gauge. We do this every week. There are some stats that if Tennessee hits them, if Josh Heupel's team hits them, it's like an 85, 90% win. They hit them all yesterday. They went over 150 yards rushing at 228. They went well over 4.5 yards per carry at 7.1. Yards per play, they were at 7. You got to get to 6. Sacks, they had 7 sacks. 3 is the number they need to get to. And then let's take a look at his record. Here are the other 3 stats that are always interesting. They are now 29-0. Josh Heupel's teams as a head coach, 29-0 when allowing fewer than 27 points. 44-8 now when scoring more than 30 points themselves. 29-2 when winning the turnover battle. And these are just against FBS opponents. All right. When we come back, who was the best player on the field? What was the worst coaching move and who made it? And also, the real reason Tennessee is messing around with their uniforms. It's not recruiting. We'll tell you. Come on back.